Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Gabrielle Ray and I present cases of missing persons, the unidentified, and unsolved homicides. Today I will be going over the unsolved homicide of Carol Rofstad, who was deceased on December 24th, 1975 in Normal, Illinois.
She was 21 at the time of her death, and she had a brother named Robert and a sister named Laura.
She was easygoing, hardworking, and cheerful. She had long blonde hair and was a real good kid with no enemies. She was from Elk Grove Village and worked in a retail store. She stayed in town to work at the former Hex Women's Apparel in Normal. She was supposed to leave Tuesday night for her parents' home in Elk Grove Village. She wanted to earn some extra Christmas money from her job as a saleswoman. Bill Towler, Hex manager, said that she left around 8:30 p.m. with a friend, and her friend and her went separate ways after they decided to drop by Welcome Inn's Tavern in downtown Normal. The pair arrived but didn't stay long, and they shortly left. The friend last saw her around 8:45 p.m. The Welcome Inn was located near the railroad track. The Illinois State University Coed and sorority member was found beaten unconscious around noon on December 23, 1975. She was beaten and left outside all night in sub-freezing temperatures. She wasn't discovered until at least 12 hours after the attack. Fell Street, where the house is located, cuts right through campus. She was found outside of the Delta Zeta sorority house, located at 602 South Fell Street. Her cause of death were brain injuries. She was hit 3 times, which interrupted brain flow. She died on Christmas Eve. She was transported to St. Francis Hospital Medical Center in Peoria, where she died at 4:40 p.m. Most students already left campus for holiday break at the time of her attack. 2 women in the sorority house did not remember seeing anything unusual. A witness driving by saw 2 men outside with her, but thought it was just quote-unquote college kids goofing around. There was an hour and 15-minute gap between the time she was last seen and when the apparent witness saw the beating. It is believed the murder weapon that was used was an 18-inch piece of railroad tie located near the scene. Wood was found near her body with blood on it, resembling split firewood, and a set of her keys were also found several yards away. Contents of her purse, such as a wallet and checkbook, appeared untouched, discounting robbery as a motive. Money was found in her purse, and there was no signs of a sexual assault. She probably had her keys in her hand and was attacked while walking, said Lieutenant Dennis Kemp. It was possibly somebody she knew, said Sergeant Dan Sadler, and Sadler had worked this case often. Unfortunately, Carol had also been attacked on July either 15th or 16th, I've seen both in media articles, 1974, while she slept. A man cut the telephone line to the house, broke in through the back door, and made way to her upstairs bedroom at around 3 a.m. He broke in through the fire escape. She awoke with a man's hands around her throat, and she screamed, and he covered her mouth and lifted her from her bed, slammed her against a drawer, and gave her a broken nose. He ended up running out after this, and she was unable to give police a description, only that he was wearing green pants. Police are not ruling out that this attack had something to do with her death. And the police also stated that Carol handled it better than a lot of girls in the house would have. 2 men, one of whom carried a club, were seen between 10 o'clock p.m. and 10:15 p.m. on December 23, 1975. A man with a mental illness confessed to the crime, then he took back claim and the charges were dropped. A man with a mental illness confessed to the crime, and he ended up taking back the claim and the charges were dropped. Murder charges against David Whitmer, an inmate/mental institution patient who had voluntarily confessed to the murder in 1977, were indeed dropped. Very few consider his statement credible, and he only confessed to gain transfer from an institution to another, where he said he received better treatment. Suspicion rests on a former ISU student, and almost everyone believes that this person was responsible, and he was a person of interest for 4 years. It is unclear why this person was considered a suspect or a person of interest for that matter. And 17 months after the murder, another Delta Zeta member was attacked in her room when an assailant tried throwing her out of a second-story window. And another 18 months later, another attack happened on a non-Delta Zeta member. But Sadler believes that the two are related and withheld the information that would tie the two together. Police later found out that two 21-year-old women were also attacked almost 1 month later in other separate incidents. One escaped when her screams drew several men in the area of 400 West Venice Avenue. The second woman who was attacked went to her car on South Fell Avenue, 601, directly across the street from Carol's incident. She was grabbed by a man who put his hands around her throat and threatened to choke her. And the description of all three men are similar, but fairly general. John Snudak, a resident on South Fell, said, "You hear so many screams and strange noises that you don't know when they're real or not." And another neighbor, the night of Carol's incident, didn't think anything of the screams. The other attacks at the sorority house happened once on April 14th, 1977. An unsuccessful attempt on two women to attack them at 3:15 a.m. happened when a man had a nylon stocking or some kind of cap over his head. And another attack, which actually went unreported, happened in November of 1976. A woman coming back from a pajama party at about 3 a.m. was hit on the head from behind, knocked unconscious, and a rape attempt had been made. An attempted burglary had also taken place at 3:20 a.m. in April 1977, where a window screen on the third floor was ripped out and found by other sorority members. Sadler said that it may have served as a double purpose, to attack the women and to withhold a confession. After the first attack, the sorority house is said to have upped their security, but apparently that didn't really matter because the other women were attacked just the same as Carol, except Carol was the only one who was deceased. Police interviewed people around the state, reviewed multiple leads, and accumulated many boxes of files. Police believe that she may have been followed home from the bar that night and then attacked outside of her home. And a man who was considered a person of interest passed a polygraph test and was no longer considered a suspect. In 2001, Normal Police sent clothes and other belongings, one of which contained fingerprints, to the FBI lab in Washington, D.C. Police found some newly discovered evidence in 2001. Fingerprints were lifted from a crime scene evidence bag stored in the police locker. They didn't belong to Carol. Tony Daniels, a retired Normal detective's work, led police to send the old evidence to the FBI. But it could belong to someone who handled the evidence. Ted Bundy was once considered a suspect in her murder, just because she had long hair, just like his other victims did.
but it was determined that he was out west at the time of her death. Another man's name came up repeatedly and was described as a man with, quote-unquote, a rich history of violence towards females, and he made believable threats against at least 8 people's lives. Senior James Dowdy, a sociology major, began looking up information on this cold case involving the former ISU student in 2017 as part of an assignment. He got caught up in the investigation, even talking to people who knew her, and the case ended up being reopened because of the information that he gathered. It is unclear what this information is, but Sadler said that he is hoping for a miracle. This case is eminently solvable as long as the truth comes out, said George Seibel, director of Morton College Institute for Cold Case Solution. We owe it to her family and Carol to solve what happened to her, said Lieutenant Paul Smith. It is the oldest unsolved Illinois case to date. There is a $1,000 reward for anybody who has any information on this case. And that is all the information that I could find on the death of Carol Rofstad. And it's honestly a very heartbreaking case because it's so old and there's no tips coming in recently. I believe that hopefully somebody somewhere will speak up and, say something to the right person that'll pass on the tip. And we can get this case solved for law enforcement, for the family, for her friends. She was well liked, and she was a pretty girl, and not to mention, she was just a good student and an all-around good person. It's not fair that things like this happen because, it's true. Bad things really do happen to good people. And I want this case solved. And it's not only me that wants this case solved, but many of us want this case solved. It's one of Illinois' oldest unsolved crimes, if not the oldest unsolved crime. Let this move from a cold case to a solved case. If you have any information on this death, please contact Normal Police Department at 309-454-9526 or the McLean County Crimestoppers at 309-828-1111. This is the reason I do what I do, is because I want these cases solved. I want closure for the family. I want the heartbreak to end. And I want peace to come to all that loved and cared for these victims. And it's truly, again, heartbreaking because there are no answers to all the questions that everybody has. And I just want this case solved. I really do. Because she was only 20 years old. And 21 years old. She did not deserve her life to be cut so short. She barely witnessed anything in her life. There was so much more that life had to offer her, and it was cut short. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a wonderful night.